This video and all other videos on this channel are for entertainment purposes only. The content of this video and all other videos on this channel are the opinions of the creator only and do not constitute legal, trading, investment, or financial advice of any kind. Investing carries a high level of risk and the majority of retail clients lose money. Do not invest any capital unless you understand the risks and you are prepared to lose it all.
Baby on lap, let's go. Alright, hello and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel, and today I want to continue on this theme of repeating myself until something either invalidates or we continue to move on in the direction of our expectations. First things first, okay, 160k guy capitulated. This became a community joke for a little while that this guy commented Bitcoin won't go over 160k this bull run on every video, but recently he's changed his idea. He says, look, although I say this every video, after the dump, which appears worse than the FTX and C19 crash, he now believes there's a chance we could go over 160k as certain metrics have now reset. Now I want to say this, some of you guys were quick to kind of be mean to this guy as if he doesn't have the right to change his opinion, right? Or start name calling for whatever reason. I don't think there's any reason to do that, right? I think the gentleman was doing me a solid by commenting on every video to help boost the algorithm, and if he wants to change his stance, right, then he's entitled to do that. So either way, we'll see, and we'll continue to track this for the memes. Of course, nothing but love to any of my followers, so thank you again for all the daily comments. I do appreciate it. Next up, we've got some narrative arriving just in time for the final leg into the top, which we believe will be before Christmas, and I've got some evidence to support that this episode. But again, we're always open to this thing running a little later than expected, okay? As long as we still get our 4-year cycle in the timing window, then we'll still call it a 4-year cycle and nothing really changes, right? Just slightly more right translated than perhaps we expected. Powell is out here saying the Fed may stop shrinking the balance sheet in the months ahead. What does this mean? It means stopping or halting QT, which of course is akin to QE at the margin. For anyone that doesn't know, just like with interest rates, okay, let's say we start at 0, they hike them, they pause them, they cut them, they pause, they hike, they pause, they cut, they pause again. The same is kind of true with QE, right? We get QE on, QE off. So they do QE, outright QE and Fed balance sheet expansion, which is printing money and buying assets, primarily bonds, okay? Then they pause QE, then they QT, they quantitative tighten, they taper the balance sheet, they drain, they do the inverse, whatever you want to call it, okay? Then they pause QT, then they spool the printers up and go back to asset accumulation and Fed balance sheet expansion, and they repeat all over again. So at the moment, okay, we've done the big print off of C19, we did the pause, we started QT, okay, and it appears we are getting dangerously close to halting QT, which again sets up, doesn't it, getting to that big timeline that this channel has been touting for years, which is late 2026 for those major 4-year cycle lows to be catalyzed by record amounts of QE and Fed balance sheet expansion. Once we get to that pause portion, right, once we've completely stopped tapering the balance sheet and we're getting ready to start expanding it again, we need to see the interest rates come down, because only when interest rates are at or near 0 can QE even be effective. But things are still going according to plan, okay? And remember, this doesn't really have to happen. It just has to be in sight enough for the market to start to price it in and start to assume it's going to happen, right? And then it will manifest as those blow off tops into the end of the year. Did you just be sick? No. Oh. Next up is the Bitcoin Dalai Lama meme pattern, okay? And I was saying, look, come on, one last one for this cycle. Let's just see this one more time for this cycle. Okay, we'll get this Dalai Lama pattern, the Greek letter mu, and off we go, right, to new highs, hopefully. And again, that should be the last one of this cycle. And whilst the term cycle gets kind of misused and misidentified a lot in this space, for those of you that know the types of cycles we trade and we use, okay, they're measured low to low, as Tony the Bull shows here with these arcs, okay? These arcs are equidistant, meaning the points from low to low are equally spaced, of course. And you can quite clearly see, okay, we have significantly past the midpoint. We are currently extremely right translated, and we are running out of time for this major 4-year cycle, measured low to low. Now, I can say a few things about this chart with confidence, and then the rest is open to interpretation. The first thing I can say with confidence is, regardless of what happens here in the next few months, I think what we're going to see is this thing trend down something like this, bottom somewhere around here, and then start to trend back up again. I think I'm confident that that is absolutely going to happen. Something else I'm extremely confident is going to happen is somewhere around this kind of 70k level, try and get this right, put a dot here, and sometime in the 4-year cycle low timing window, we are going to get a bottom form, okay? So I'm going to draw a little bottom in here. And then I think we're going to go left translation, so I'm confident with that bit as well. For the simple reason we've had 1, 2, 3, this is the 4th right translated cycle, and where left translation does not occur in the 4th, we tend to see it in the 5th, so that becomes the base case. Big left translated cycle, meaning the top forms to the left-hand side of the midpoint, and then we'll trend back down in an extended bear market. So then all that's left is what happens in this blank section that we've yet to fill in. And it could be a number of things, right? It could be a kind of sneaky distribution top. This would be the most institutional thing in the world. No euphoria, no FOMO, no greed. Everyone in here will be saying, wow, it couldn't possibly be the top because there's been no euphoria, there's been no greed, there's been no FOMO, right? There's been no blow off top, there's been no alt season, or whatever the narrative is. But this would just be the most institutional thing ever. It would look just like that stock market top from the S&P 500 back in 2022. I showed this before, where we just channeled our way up here and then quietly went sideways and rolled over. And it wasn't actually until we got all the way down here where suddenly people got bearish, right? And then of course we ripped their faces off with a 20% counter and bounce before rolling over here. In here, every man and his dog was screaming 2008 fractal, and we're only halfway down, and that of course is where the bottom formed and where contrarian matters the most. And so if I copy and paste that fractal from the S&P into the 2022 bear market and stick it somewhere here, it would kind of look something like this, right? It would just be that we crept our way up and then we're going to just roll over and sneak our way down into a 4-year cycle low, something like this. Okay, no one would really see it coming, no one would expect it, but it would be the most institutional thing ever, since that is actually how the majority of markets top. Everyone thinks they need euphoria, greed, and FOMO, but in fact they do not, right? Most of the tops, especially outside of crypto, are sneaky and distributive like this. So that is one possibility, and I do think this would be very, very difficult to deal with. I think it would catch a lot of people off guard. However, what I would much rather see, it makes my life a lot easier, it makes identifying the top and selling the top much, much easier, is we've got to start going vertical pretty much right now. We've got to get a few big candles up here, get this big top into the end of the year, maybe before Christmas. I guess in the worst case scenario, it could be Q1 of next year, okay, and then have a whopping great correction into this low. That would be very, very characteristic of prior tops and bear markets. That's what we'd hopefully like to see. But all of this area in here, I would say, is to be determined, right? We don't really know, and that's what makes markets challenging. The rest of what I've drawn here, this thing down the bottom resetting itself, the low forming around 70k, inside the timing window, moving into left translation, I'm extremely confident in all of that. It's just what is going to happen here is to be determined. But again, going back here, I do maintain if we can Dalai Lama our way out of here, that'll be a good start for getting to new all-time highs. But more importantly, it's likely the last one of this cycle. You can essentially be in one of two camps here, right? You can look at this chart and say, I don't care about cycles. Daily cycles are no longer going to chain together to give weekly cycles. Weekly cycles are no longer going to chain together to give yearly cycles. And thus, this low is just not going to show up, right? You can be in that camp of people and you can append whatever narrative you want to try to justify your idea that this low is not going to form inside of this window. Or you can say cycles are going to do cycle things and we are going to continue to see daily cycles show up. We're going to continue to chain them together to give weekly cycles. And in 2 more weekly cycles, we're going to be able to label that as a 4-year major cycle low. So I'm personally not going to bet against all these cycles just ceasing to exist, okay? I'm going to stick with this idea that this is what's coming, and thus we are rapidly running out of time here, okay? And it doesn't fill me with comfort or confidence to say that. It's just what I know to be objectively true. It was also true back here. When we had this big run up and this pullback, it was like, yeah, here we go. We're off to 300k. But by the time we got here, it was pretty obvious that like, okay, we've used up the bull phase of this cycle. There's really not that much time left. And then once we started to roll over, bear flag and break down, in here, you kind of had to say, well, we've missed the top by a bit and it's time to duck out of the position. And right now we haven't got any breaks of structure, okay? So we're not at this.
Bro, you good? Here you go. Chill out.
Anyway, by the time we got here, okay, we'd already started to break down from structure, we'd started to break trend lines. We don't have that at the hard right edge yet, okay? We haven't broken down, we haven't got new lower lows, we haven't got any weekly damage on the chart just yet. But objectively speaking, we are, as you can see right here from this beautiful illustration from Tony, we are very late, okay? And it's just the reality, it's just the truth. Doesn't mean we couldn't overrun. Doesn't mean we haven't got maybe even up to March of next year to hit upside targets, okay? Maybe we're just going to do this for a little while longer and then go. And remember, a rule of cycle theory is the more stretched this gets, the more violent and sharp and sudden the correction will be. But you know, I think, to be honest, if you're looking at this and saying, oh, we're still early, or you're not concerned that we're going to be well on our way to a major cycle low pretty soon, I don't know. I just don't know what you're looking at. I just think personally, you probably just have a total misunderstanding of how these cycles work, right? Because as soon as you understand even the basics of cycle theory, right, you know, this is not a great look at the moment. It's just the truth, right? We are late. Doesn't mean we can't go higher. It just means we're extremely late. And with every day that we don't go higher as well, remember the probability of the top being in or us being about to top without any spectacular upside price action increases. Right, so every single day that passes here in which we continue to kind of just do nothing, okay, increases the probability that there are no more going over 160k this cycle, okay, and that this was probably correct in its entirety the first time around. And unfortunately, that's just how cycles work, you know, but we have to be open to everything. It's fine for me to come on here and say, well, this is a clear and strong uptrend. There's still probably a good couple of months of upside left here. If we're lucky, we could probably still get north of 200k again, if we're lucky. That's all true. But it is also true that we are late, okay? And we must acknowledge this. It's no good just being like every other guy on Twitter and saying, well, there's no more 4-year cycle, there's no more bear market, right? BlackRock's never going to allow a drawdown. Oh, it was always going to be a Q2 top and then only like a 20% drawdown or whatever, or no more 4-year cycles, right? We can't just do this and say, well, that's it, cycles don't exist anymore. Feel free to, I'm not trying to convince you of anything, but that's just not how I'm going to be operating. I've got another slide to talk about for this Dalai Lama. What could it look like, okay? And how insane or berserko could it get? Because I know when I say things like this right here, a lot of people find it incredibly difficult to even comprehend or imagine Bitcoin just mooning from here to 200k in like 1 or 2 monthly candles. I understand that. But never say never, because we've seen the exact same thing before, okay? Here we go. August into September, Dalai Lama are way out of here. By the time we get to October, boom, absolute moon mission. For the time the Dalai Lama break occurs, it takes just 8 weeks, okay? To go from, what is that, like 600-ish bucks up to 1,200 approximately, just shy of. And so here's that same fractal showing that we could quite easily be Dalai Lama in our way out of here to 150k by the end of the year, and it really wouldn't be that crazy, to be completely honest. Remember, from here it's only really about a 40% upside. From the prior high it was only about 25% upside, or 30% at the most. And if we pull up FOMO Finder, you can see at the hard right edge here, we've had plenty of purple all along the way, okay? Plenty of purple into the lows. This is usually synonymous with major swings and reversals. So I would say we've got a very good candidate for a reversal here. And again, if we did, it would just be Dalai Lama things, right? Nothing really out of the ordinary. In other news, we just had Metaplanet fall below its MNAV of 1 for the first time ever. And this is just a friendly reminder that MNAV doesn't matter, okay? Charts are the truth. There's a reason we only pay attention to TA on this channel. We don't do any fundamental analysis. We don't care about MNAV or value. For a long time, people were saying, oh, MSTR can't go down, right? Strategy can't crash to these kind of low levels because the MNAV would be negative. The MNAV's going to go negative, right? That's just how markets work. Like, nobody cares about this stuff apart from retail. That's the absolute truth. Markets are extremely irrational basically all of the time. So there is no such thing as fundamental analysis. There really isn't, okay? And anyone that does fundamental analysis will have experienced this, right? You do your FA, earnings comes out, it's even above your expectations, the market still goes down. Why? Because cycles are in control, right? Only if the cycle has bottomed can your news release or earnings report manifest as higher prices. And so if that's true, why bother with the FA in the first place, right? It's a good question. A couple other tabs of news before we get into some charts, okay, and that is the US government just seized $15 billion worth of Bitcoin from a pig butchering scam in Cambodia, which now brings their total holding above 325k Bitcoin, worth about $37 billion. So is this how they're going to get their strategic reserve, right? Are they just going to seize it from loads of different places? I also wanted to show this, okay, because as I've been saying this whole episode, we are getting extremely late in this 4-year cycle. And look what is due to be launched around the 29th of December of this year. Right into the end of the year, they are about to launch 27 leveraged 3x and 5x single stock and crypto ETFs for the likes of AMD, Amazon, Coin, Circle, Google, MicroStrategy, Nvidia, PLTR, Tesla, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, XRP, and the VIX, all levered either 5 or 3x. Those of you that know your market history will know. Back in 2017, at the Pico top, they launched the first Bitcoin futures, cash settled, right? Back at the Pico top here, they also launched the first cash settled ETFs. At the Pico bottom, they launched the ProShares short leveraged ETF, enabling retail to short the lows. This is the only outlier where they launched the BlackRock spot Bitcoin ETF. And now going into the end of this year, starting this month, I think in the UK, they're going to allow UK people to buy crypto ETNs inside of their normal SIP accounts, although apparently only until April of next year, and then you're going to become a forced seller, which is suspect, right? You're going to be allowed to buy the top, and then in April next year, you're going to have to sell the lows, right? Or sell significantly lower as we've topped into the 4-year cycle. Pretty wild. And now, like I said, at the end of this year, around the 29th of December, probably after we Dalai Lama our way out of here and move higher into the final top, then all of a sudden what we're going to get is everyone be allowed to buy all these leveraged products. And I am speculating once more, this is probably going to mark an ultimate top, or at least close to it. Before we do some proper TA and look at some live positions, I've been wondering if this is what we're going to get for Bitcoin dominance. Again, I think it's crowded. I see everyone saying that this is breakdown, retest, and will be resumption soon. And it absolutely could be. Don't get me wrong, right? I'm not saying that that's not on the table. I'm just saying I think it's crowded. I'm normally quite good at spotting crowded trades and saying I want to be the other side of that trade. And I think this is crowded. I think too many people are expecting this. I've been extremely consistent ever since I had this channel that I don't think even if you get a true breakdown, it's going back to the lows. I don't think that's ever been on the table. I've always said that. And if you do get a breakdown, probably looks quite muted, probably like this. right? But I see every man and his dog saying this is 1 into 2, 3, 4, and 5 is coming, and I don't believe it. I think that's way too crowded at the moment. I do wonder if we're going to do this. And my point of raising this, okay, is note from the quoted tweet, we are closer to a recession now than we were back in February. If I go to my quoted tweet in February, I've long been talking about how we would get this climb, okay, and then we would get to this kind of 65 neighborhood or whatever. And then the question would become, do we get to avoid a recession completely and see a big broad-based alt season? Do we get the true breakdown? Do we get invalidation of the recession idea and everything's fine and dandy? Or if a recession hits and the major markets top and we go risk off for a while, then there's certainly going to be no alt season. Nobody's going to say, oh, I know what I need to defend my portfolio in a recession. I need altcoins. No one's going to say that, right? So I was saying that if we got all the way here and then a recession hits and a big bear market was to occur, we would probably see this go all the way up towards 100 as people just shed everything that's risky and speculative from their portfolios. You know, so now when we go back here, we clearly had this first move. Okay, we clearly got to the 65 neighborhood. Sure, we've had a little breakdown and a shakeout so far, and it, again, as I said, could easily morph into this. It could. Right? I'm not taking that off the table by any means. But as I said in this tweet right here, you know, we are now a lot closer to a recession than we were back in February. Back in February, there was some early doors signs that we were deteriorating. But now, I mean, it's pretty clear that we are practically there, right? So therefore, if this does happen, with hindsight, we'd be able to look back and say, well, yeah, this is obviously pretty crowded. Okay, most people are saying that, you know, there's only one way this can go, and that's back to the lows. I think that's crowded. And if we do top into the end of the year, even if you get something like this, that's a pretty muted non-broad based alt season. Again, fits with the base case. And then we go recession and you'll get something like this in recession, right? And everyone will be like, oh my gosh, how did this happen? But, you know, no one's buying altcoins as the flight to safety, are they? So it'd be interesting to see if this is the case. If this is not in play, by the way, let's call the invalidation right now, okay? Here's the upward sloping trend line in red. If what we get, draw your eyes to this upward sloping red resistance line, is this whole thing is breakdown, retest, and resumption lower, okay? Then there's a clear invalidation for my yellow squiggle and fractal here. The moment we trade below this new low, okay, I have to take it completely off the table and I have to say, okay, we are now breaking down. This is confirmed breakdown, retest, and resumption, but resumption does not confirm until we get a new lower low below about 57%, let's say. So there's the clear line in the sand, okay, trade below there, and I'm completely wrong. All the while we're above this low, okay, then altcoins are, I think, in trouble. So kicking things off with the stock market, unusual strength here. Did we just truncate the two drives pattern and then double bottom? Are we going to move up from here? Time will tell. But so far, this is unusual strength from the stock market. Speaking of unusual strength, gold just continuing to rip, isn't it? I do wonder if it's going to start to gap here as we get that grand finale moment. Silver, I still think, is quite a long way off of its highs. I think $60 is definitely in target here, and maybe even a bit more than that. We're still pushing all those minor trades in the level 3 members section, so nothing has changed there. Notice how Bitcoin is creeping up, okay? It's still fulfilling its Dalai Lama pattern. If I pull up this same chart that I showed you earlier, okay, it looks like we're doing it, right? We're just kind of gradually grinding this way out, and then hopefully by the end of the week, we'll start to really push off here. So I still think this is very much in play, and thus I don't want to doubt it just yet. Notice how Ethereum and these other alts are also looking pretty Dalai Lama-esque, aren't they? So I think these are pretty much bottomed here, and I think they just need to do a bit more chop and sideways ranging, trap a few more shorts before then using those short stop losses as bullish catalyst for upside price momentum. And the same is true with like XRP as well. Looks a lot like a Dalai Lama so far, doesn't it? Just needs a few more days to kind of roll over and then pump, and then happy days, right? I think that's pretty much it. Still telling that to the bond market. A bunch of you were asking me about TLT. I haven't forgotten, okay, but I'm taking my time as always. I'm in no rush, waiting for a quality setup to come to me. I'm not trying to force anything. I'm not in any rush here, okay? I don't see a couple of green candles or a move away from my yellow squiggle and start going, oh no, I need a FOMO in, right? That's not how I operate. So we'll wait for a quality setup to come to me and we'll buy it. And if there's no quality setup or it turns out I missed it, then what does that matter? Doesn't, right? It's a problem that doesn't exist. I'll just find someone else to trade. So anyway, I'm taking my time. I'll let you know, okay? Leave it with me. If you made it this far, when the outro music plays, there will be a video suggestion here you can go and watch, and one pertaining to the indicator. So maybe go and click those. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow. Until then, all the best from me. Cheers. Bye.
Camel Finance, he's the man to see. Rocking the markets with his contrarian spree. Trades like a pro, no fear, no shame. Sticking to his guns in his money game. He's a badass, oh yes indeed. Camel